While some stories reached their final chapter, other tragedies in the world continue to play out, sadly, mostly unnoticed. 8 years ago, a 14-year-old girl, Leah Sharibu, was kidnapped from her school in northern Nigeria by Islamic militant oppressors, and she was dragged into a life of captivity. She remains in captivity to this day, and all because she refuses to renounce her Christian faith. Leah continues to be mostly forgotten by the world that has abandoned her to her fate. Last month, the anniversary of her kidnapping received very little in the way of acknowledgement, with the exception of a number of persecution watchdog organizations who continue to try to draw public attention to this outrage. And of course, Leah's family cannot forget her as easily as the world has done. They have not heard a word from her since the day of her kidnapping in February of 2018, and they have lived with the agony of what is happening to her every day for 8 years, as the world, the same one that prides itself on its compassion, continues to ignore them. So let's remind ourselves of what happened at the start of this story. 14-year-old Leah was kidnapped by the Islamic State West Africa province, also known as ISWAP. She was taken hostage with 104 other young girls from the Government Girls Science and Technical School in Yobe State on February 19, 2018. While most of the other girls have since been released, Leah has not, because she refuses to convert to Islam. And these people believe that they have the right to force their beliefs down the throats of all other unwilling human beings by any means available. That is what we are dealing with here, and people cannot be allowed to continue denying that reality any longer. The costs are too high for willful blindness to be indulged further. Ryan Brown, the CEO of the persecution watchdog group Open Doors, told the Daily Wire that Leah Sharibu was the only Christian in that very large group of kidnapped girls, and that she was singled out to remain in captive subjugation purely because of her faith. This young girl is not just another statistic to Open Doors. They keep in regular contact with Leah's family, and they help them celebrate her birthday every year without her. Mr. Brown had this to say: "With so much going on in our world, it's easy to forget these things. It's easy to move on to the next headline. But for those that have been personally touched by these things, they can't move on." There are reports that little Leah has been forced into marriages with her captors against her will, and that as a result of her non-consensual sexual abuse at their hands, she has given birth to children while being held in captivity by them. But those reports are difficult to confirm under the circumstances. Another woman who was kidnapped by these Islamic militants and who was later escaped in 2024 confirmed that she had met Leah during her time in captivity. Meanwhile, Leah's family says that the Nigerian government has done very little to try and secure her release from these barbarians. Mr. Brown told the Daily Wire, "There have been Nigerian officials that have communicated and attempted to see Leah released and have said that they will do that, but the family has not been able to see any visible evidence that there's been anything other than promises that were made." And so that has been a source of confusion and pain. The Islamic State West Africa province, the group that took this little girl and continues to hold her enslaved in order to inflict their unwelcome beliefs on her, is an offshoot of the militant Islamic group Boko Haram, a similar group that split off from them in 2015 and has since displaced or killed thousands of victims in and around Nigeria, according to the intelligence community. The barbaric group has between 4,000 and 7,000 members in its ranks who have and continue to carry out military-style bombings, kidnappings, and targeted killings. Leah's ongoing captivity against her will is a brutal reminder of the reality that many Christians face right now in Nigeria, despite their government's empty assurances that it protects them from violent attacks, all evidence to the contrary. Which is why last November President Trump designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern over the rampant Christian persecution that is taking place in the north of that country. Shortly after, on Christmas Day, he ordered strikes on ISIS targets in Nigeria, calling for these terrorists to stop slaughtering Christians. But the Nigerian government's denial of the problem continues to compound it. Mr. Brown said when it came to the helpless villages that were targeted by the violent militant crusaders, even if there were any arrests, they were only for show, and there were rarely any prosecutions, pointing out the end result is that whether it's through omission or commission, there's still a responsibility. The Nigerian government needs to address those things. It needs to be able to respond to those types of situations. After the increasing pressure from the United States in recent months, Mr. Brown added that it looks like some of the militants behind these brutal, bigoted massacres of Christians last summer might finally be prosecuted, saying that is a huge step forward and one that we continue to advocate for, and to ask the Nigerian government to not allow these individuals to act with impunity, to make sure that there's accountability for these acts of aggression. Meanwhile, the Nigerian government has hired lobbyists to convince the American government that it is taking appropriate action to protect Christians against West African jihadist groups and other destabilizing elements in the region. In fact, Nigeria agreed to pay the consulting firm DCI millions of dollars to rehabilitate its damaged image online. Those bought and paid for spin pages have not yet gone public. Spin aside, the sheer number of religious killings and kidnappings that have occurred paint a very troubling picture. A picture that is much more bloody and revolting than the narrative constructors want you to know. Of the 3,302 religiously motivated kidnappings that took place around the world just in 2025, 2,293 of them took place in Nigeria, according to Mr. Brown. He is asking for Americans to remember Leah Sharubu's parents in their prayers, saying, knowing that there are others around the world that have not forgotten their daughter, that have not forgotten over this period of 8 years that their daughter has likely experienced a hell on earth, and to know that there are others who remember and that are continuing to lift her up in prayer. That is just such incredible encouragement.